Hello everyone, it's DuckFaden07 and today I'm playing my Grixis build again. I have dedicated a lot of time to trying to find the perfect version for the current metagame of this deck and try to improve it and build it as best as possible for this exact metagame at the moment. And I decided to go with the 3 counterspells in the main. This change I did in comparison to my last list. I think it was very good. Counterspell helped in a lot of random matchup. It helped you play a longer game. 3 counterspells, plus 2 stubborn denials, plus 2 drowning locks, plus the sideboard cards like subtlety, stubborn denial, press down, enabled you much easier, secure late game, and it's just being able to swing with a large creature for a couple of turns and just protecting yourself much better than in the previous version. Previous version was maybe a bit more aggressive to playing just a couple of more creatures. There are no big changes, of course, but this one, a counterspell, proved to be very useful in a lot of situations while you're not really losing and nothing much. Because of this and the Murktide regions and the cantrips, I decided to go all blue mana base. This means 3 Steam Vents, 3 Watery Graves, and only basic 1 island. Okay, this can make you softer to the Blood Moon, but the Blood Moon is not really that popular at the moment. Plus, you have the Stubborn Denials, you have the counter spells for it, Drowning Locks, Thoughtseize, also another Stubborn Denial on the sideboard. So you should be pretty secure against it, but of course, you can include a Swamp if the Blood Moon becomes more prevalent in the metagame and the Bloodstad Myers. Okay, so I included subtleties in the sideboard. They proved to be very useful, and they were just very good in a lot of matchups. Okay, I saw Spike commenting on my list, and he said like, why is he playing the Flame of Feiners, Cast in the Fire? We don't need that, but we really need that because of the opponent's Chalice of the Void. A lot of decks at the moment play Chalice of the Void on their sideboard, and some decks even in the main, and you have to have a solution for the Chalice of the Void. Also, you have to have solution for your opponent's Unlicensed Curse and artifact-based Graveyard Hit. I decided to play Flame of Honor instead of Colgan's Command or some similar spell because of this mode that this card deals 5 damage to target creature, and this was the most relevant mode I used. I've used this card against Hammer Time, and Colgan's Command is usually slightly better against Hammer Time, but this is not a card you board in only against Hammer Time. You use it in a lot of fair matchups, and the 5 damage clause has been very relevant, and we will see it in this exact league. I'm going to show you. It was a 5-0 league. I did a trophy with this list, and it was in a final match that the Flame of Feiners was really important. Okay, so let's go through the league and see how it went. Okay, this was the first match. Playing first, keeping a very classic hand, one big creature, one a cantrip, and couple of interaction spells. I play my Preordain, find, consider, leave it on top, and I was playing against Dimir Affinity. It seemed so at this point. I was holding the counter spell and the Drowning Lock, and decided to counter this Blood Fountain. But they had the Hearse, and they also played the Chalice of the Void, so it wasn't like the most usual Dimmer Affinity list. But yeah, they played a lot of Affinity stuff. I'm not sure if they had. They probably played this because it makes 2 blood tokens, but it is kind of weird inclusion, so I'm not sure what exactly did my opponent play. And I was able to jam a turn 3 7/7 Murktide, and I was focused on killing their constructs to prevent them from attacking me with the constructs and the shadow spears or whatever. And I decided to kill this construct before they get the Springleaf drums, so they can't play anything this turn. I pain some more and continue attacking with Murktide, holding the counterspell, basically having a turn 2 clock because they can gain some life here. Okay, so they go for it. They gain 3 life. I play the Dreadhorde Arcanist, put my opponent on 2 life, and they don't have any more solutions. So that was game 1. Let's check out the game 2. Okay, so let's see how I sideboarded in this match. With this deck, the sideboarding is really important. Okay, so I took out 2 Totsis. This is something I do often on the draw when when I expect when my opponent plays some aggressive deck, and I usually board out 2 Totsis. To be able to count, I have to fetch mostly shocks, and to be able to preserve my life total a bit. That's something I usually do. So I took out also 1 counterspell and 2 considers, and that was it. I used the cast into the fire, engineered explosives, a flame of Fener, those kind of cards that I really need in the matchup like this to kill as much of their stuff as possible. So they went for the construct here. They don't create another one, so I decide to crack my explosives before they get the pitting needle with their saga ability. So they go for a shadow spear here, play the chalice on 1. I decide to use my counterspell, but they have the Flusterstorm, so luckily I used the counterspell there, so I was able to just Flame of Fener, the chalice if needed, or just use 5 damage claws, but it is always very useful in this match. I decided to go for the chalice, kind of put the Flame of Fener into the graveyard so I can play the Murktide next turn. My shadow was getting huge, so I had a 9/9 shadow and a 5/5 Murktide, and opponent draws a card, doesn't find any answer and concedes. So that was match 1. Okay, let's check out match 2. All 1-drops. This is ideal. I love this kind of hands. So in this situation like this, it's always, I think, when you have a 1-lander, you have to start with the cantrip to make sure you find that second land. If you don't find that second land, then you can really be in a problem. So I started off with Totsis on turn 2, discarding the Summoner's Pact, and this was my opponent's hand, so they were playing the Amulet Titan. They went for the Caverns, play the Grazer, play their Chamber, and yeah, so I actually misclicked on the last Totsis. I wanted to discard 1 ring. Luckily, I top decked another Totsis, so I was able to get rid of the 1 ring. If I didn't do this, if I didn't top deck, I'm afraid I'm not sure if I will be able to win this. 1 ring would probably prevail, but I luckily top decked that second Totsis to correct my misclick from the turn before, and now I had a 6/6 shadow attacking. I have iteration here, I have jumpers in Orcish Bowmasters. I decide not to play this bolt and just go for the Bowmasters, jump their construct token if needed, if not, just to play it as a tucker. So I go for it, my opponent stays back, and yeah, I had multiple options here. So in situation like this, you always have to count the damage. So I could have just bolted the construct and not kill my opponent this turn. Always have to count the damage and have to see if you're close to the lethal. And I had the lethal with the fetching, making my shadow a 9/9. killing the blocker with the drown and finishing off my opponent with the lightning bolt. So that was the game. Let's check out game 2. Okay, so this is really a classic hand you get with this type of deck, and you kind of have to always aim to have a similar hand to this one, either some cantrips and zero threats, or one threat, one cantrip, and some interaction like counterspell or Thoughtseize or removal, whatever is needed in the matchup. I went for the Thoughtseize on turn 1, discarding Endurance from my opponent head. They didn't have much, just two Grazers, two Grow Chambers, and yeah, so I just did some counterping, holding the Consider there. Opponent top decks the Amulet of Vigor. Let's see what I did in this matchup. Okay, so I boarded out actually all Bowmasters. My opponent plays the One Ring, but they don't play a One Ring in the manner like 4-color Omnat deck does it. They play One Ring just to survive the turn and then draw 3 cards and kill you with their combo, nevertheless. So the Bowmasters really don't do much in this matchup, and I boarded all of them out. Also boarded out 2 bolts, just left one in. One counterspell, one consider, that's it. So cast into the fire, Flame of Fener, terminates all in the stuff I need to get rid of the Titan, to get rid of the Amulet, and to get rid of the Dryad. These are 3 cards I care about. And yeah, so I had the Thoughtseize to remove the Titan from my opponent's hand. They would be able to cast it this turn if I didn't remove it, and luckily I was able to find the Murktide region 2. I had opportunity there to play the Arcanist, yeah, and I kind of shocked myself too much in this game. I was already on 4 life, so risking a lot, holding, decided not to play the Arcanist, but to hold the Dress Down plus the Terminate, so I go for another iteration and kill their Grazer, their blocker, and there was no point in attacking here because they played the One Ring. They get the One Ring going. So I had the 8 damage coming next turn. They had a ring on 2 there. They find the Summoner's Pact and find the Dragonlord Dromoka, which was fine by me. I had Terminate for that creature, so it was okay. I went for the Fatal Push there, and then find me a Steam Vents and untap, getting the Thoughtseize. Okay, so of course I went Terminate there for the for the Dragonlord Dromoka, and I decided to also play my Thoughtseize and put myself to 1 life. I was already on 3 life, so it doesn't really matter if I'm on uh, 1 life or 3 life. And my opponent had 3 draws there. They had 3 draws, and among those 3 draws, they had the Dryad of Elysian Grove, which was their only thing they needed to win this game. Basically, anything else would not do it because I had the Dress Down, which removes the haste from the Titan. Yeah, so this was basically the only thing they needed to win this game, and they got it, so that was fair win. Okay, so I went for the Polluted Delta here. Started off, I had the Alpine Moon in my hand, but I didn't want to play the Alpine Moon without seeing what they have. Sometimes Alpine Moon is uh, if you play it turn 1 on a land they don't have, it can be useless. I decided to wait a turn, and I think it paid off. I played the Arcanist a turn later, but I didn't have a cantrip anyway, so it wasn't that important. I already showed my sideboard. Yeah, here we can see it once again. Okay, so I played the Dress Down in response, so my opponent can't play any more lands. I had the fetch on my turn to play the Fatal Push, and I decided it's probably best just to cast this 4/4 Murktide. I really needed to start doing some pressure on my opponent life total, and I didn't have cantrips unfortunately yet, didn't draw them, but really needed to start attacking with this 4/4 Murktide to put some kind of clock on the field. So I was able to go for a drown here and attack for 5, keep the counter spell for their turn, and hopefully um, play another Murktide on my turn. Opponent has Cavern of Souls and they have the Titan. Luckily, they don't have Amulet, so they didn't do much this turn, just to find the lands. I go for Island here, start the turn with the Consider, Graveyard, another Murktide, play the Thoughtseize, and play another Murktide. This meant that now I have when I attack, I used my Thoughtseize again. Look at their hand and discarded one ring and the Summoner's Pact. So they had just Boseijus and two bounce lands. I had one Murktide attacking, one in defense, so I traded with this one. They got the Tolaria Vest to their hand, but it wasn't very scary because they had to go for endurance to survive my attack, to survive my Murktide. So I had the counterspell backup. They have a Cavern on Giant, but they don't have Amulet, so even if they have another Titan, they can't haste me and kill me. And I also have the Dress Down, so it's just a perfect situation for me, and opponent really can't get out of this. They play the Titan, they have, so they did have it actually, but I go for a Dress Down to make this Titan basically irrelevant, and that's it. Attack 4 with a Murktide, 4 lethal and a win against Amulet Titan. Okay, so let's check out match 3. A one lander with two cantrips. I think this is basically the ideal hand. You always want to have a one lander with two cantrips. You can't really get better than that. It's almost ideal. I was playing against Scam, and yeah, this is perfect. The Orcish Bowmaster, turn 2. Sorry. Yeah, I think I had a misclick here. I wanted to play the Bowmasters, but I accidentally clicked. I tapped the black mana and then accidentally clicked Thoughtseize instead of Bowmasters or whatever. Something like that happened, and unfortunately, I had to use Bolt that turn, and the Thoughtseize, but I did eventually discard the Tarmogoyf, so it wasn't really that bad, and I had the Bowmaster still in my hand to kill something else later. So it wasn't a disaster, but I would be much happier if I just played the Bowmasters, of course. Yeah. So I find the Murktide, try to make the best out of my situation when I already missed that Bowmasters on the Ragavan, such a sweet play. But Bowmaster is always pretty good in a situation like this. Uh, when they have these constructs and then you play the Bowmasters on their 1/1 coster token, that is such a good play in a lot of situations. And now I have a blocker for this Goyf, so they have to go for Shadow Spear, so they're not making another construct. They just go for attacks with the Trample and their Goyf, but this is okay with me because now I can play huge Death Shadows. I just kill the Goyf and go for the attacks with the Murktide, and they don't have a solution for the Murktide for the next turn, and that is the game. I had a lot of misclicks in this one, but luckily I did get out of this winning. So but it could be worse definitely. Okay, so I mulligan that one and got pretty decent. Six Hers plus Bowmasters and the dress down. Opponent goes for Inquisition and gets rid of the Hers. I was in a fine situation, two Bowmasters in hand and the dress down. These are all good cards against my opponent's deck. Bowmasters gets rid of their Bowmasters and the Ragavan. Dress down gets rid of their construct tokens and can shrink a Goyf. Okay, so I go for Preordain and find the expressive iteration. So in a situation like this, there is no point in casting this iteration immediately. You want to get the maximum value out of this. Opponent goes for the Bowmasters and I decide to play the dress down in response. This way they don't kill my Bowmasters, they don't get the Orc Army token. Okay, so now I get the Fatal Push and I had the opportunity to play the Death Shadow, but I just didn't want to play it as a 1-1. I just shocked in the Death Shadow. If I did this, then pinging my Death Shadow with the Wrenn 6 would be pretty terrible. I go for a draw with the Flame of Feiner and decide to pass the turn holding the counterspell. I didn't want them. Yeah, so what I wanted in this situation and I was afraid of, just I had the opportunity to play my Murktide as a 6/6 there, but then if they had the Terminate, then they would be just able to kill my Murktide and then probably win the game with the Urza Saga. So I top deck another Shadow, and now I was able to play the Murktide, play the Shadow, and still hold the counterspell, and I was definitely right, because my opponent was holding the Terminate, and this was a key moment. The situations like this will lose you the game if you don't, if I just forced the Murktide on that turn and didn't hold my counterspell, this would be game over. They would probably be able to stabilize with the Urza Saga, and then their constructs would be much larger, and I would maybe still win with two Death Shadows, but it would maybe be unnecessarily harder game for me, and yeah, this way it was over. Murktide is very hard for them to deal with, and that was the game. Okay, so let's check out the game 3. This is not perfect hand. You usually want like 1, 2, 2, 3 lands with some cantrips and interaction. 4 lands is not ideal, but it is keepable when you have cantrips and the Fatal Push. Unfortunately, opponent here discarded both of my non-land cards. Just had a Fatal Push at this point. I find the Cast into the Fire. I wasn't in a hurry to use this. Opponent plays the Fable, so at this point they are just in a much better situation than me. I decide to go for the Soul Guide Lantern and kill the Goblin Shaman token. I really don't want to let them create those treasures. Those treasures can really be significant later when they get the Urza Saga. At this point, they went Giganta Hand, passing the turn, and yeah, so I had the expressive iteration here. I decide to use it immediately, but sometimes you just won't be able to use the iteration perfectly. Although you have a lot of one-offs in this deck, but sometimes it just happens and you can't really uh, get the maximum out of it, but it's still fine. I had the Fatal Push for the Fable, I had the Terminate for their Giganta in hand, and I had another cantrip. And this time I again cast the iteration in the situation similar to the previous one. This time I had the second land to cast actually the spell I find of the iteration. So I cast my Bowmasters and put Arcanist into hand. So next turn I had Terminate for the Giganta and play my Arcanist, and Arcanist in a situation like this, in a top deck war, Arcanist just completely can completely destroy opponent, even by just doing ability once or twice. Opponent finds the heat to get rid of it, but yeah, now opponent has the explosive, so one a bunch of lands on the field, but they're on 8 life, and I have the Bowmasters attacking. So I fetch for my last fetchable, the island, so all of my fetchables are on the field at this moment. We are both in a top deck mode, and my opponent finds the perfect top deck. It's the Mishra's research desk, and they find the Goyf. I get the removal to put them on 3 life, but they still have the Unearth ability plus the draw from the draw step. So they find Fatal Push from their research desk, and yeah, so it was a tight situation. I still had a good situation. The little token attacking, Drowning Loch in hand as a protection, and top decked another Murktide, 8/8 Murktide. As I said, it's very hard for them to deal with this, and I had the Drown in my hand, so that was the game. Okay, pretty intense games against this deck always. And yeah, let's go to the match 4. Okay, keeping double Steam Vents here with a double Bowmasters in hand, unfortunately, but I think this is fine. I still have a Bolt and Counterspell as my 2 interaction spells here, and I gotta get that Black Source mm, okay, eventually, and I'm not in that much of hurry to cast my Bowmasters. Yeah, so I did get the Drowning Lock, so now I was hoping more for that Black Source. Didn't get it immediately, but it was still fine. I had Double Bolt, I had the Counterspell, and I decided to use the Counterspell immediately in this situation, but my opponent has the Force of Negation, so they resolved their Bowmaster, which was fine. I had 2 Bowmasters of my own to deal with it, and 2 Bolts also. So I had pretty good situation against this type of hand. Opponent goes for the counter spell on my bolt, and that's why I decide to go for the second bolt immediately and not play the consider digging for land. I put island into graveyard and find a watery grave, which enabled me to cast my Bowmasters, which was crucial against their One Ring. They decided not to use the One Ring there, and I was now able to continue attacking. My opponent didn't have much, and they didn't use the One Ring aggressively, and so I went for another Bowmasters. They tried to subtlety it, but I had the Drown, so now I had a large Orc Army token, and I put another Bowmasters on the top, which was pretty good against their ring. I played my Totsis, also have a Murktide region in hand and a pretty good clock on the field. I played the Dead Shadow, opponent counters the Shadow, and now I'm free to cast my huge Murktide. And yeah, so my Orc army becomes even larger. And yeah, so this is a bad situation for my opponents. They need like Damnation to get out of this situation. They didn't get it, and that was the game. Okay, that was also game 1, so they probably don't even have Damnation in the main deck. Probably on the sideboard. Okay, let's check out how I sideboarded. This is a Dimir control matchup. And I took out, they played the Bowmasters, so when I'm playing against Bowmasters, I always take out 2 Considers. I took out 2 Bolts, Bolts don't kill the Sheldred, they don't kill the Murktide, and that is the main creatures I'm afraid of. So I boarded in my Terminates, and that's basically it. A third, Stubborn Denial, also pretty good here. A lot of good cards, but I can't board in everything. I had Totsis plus Bolt, pretty good. Their hand was at this point just explosives. They played the Otawara, draw 2 with the Archmage Charm, and I untap, play the Bowmasters, kill their token, and still hold the Stubborn Denial. So I was very happy with my hand. Now I get to untap, attack with Bowmasters, holding Drown plus double Stubborn Denial. It doesn't get much better than this. Opponent goes for the explosives, but I drown them. Get another land, and now I had iteration, double iteration protected by double stubborn denial. I use my first denial here to resolve my iteration. Yeah, this play put me in a pretty good situation. I put another Bowmasters in hand and play out my shadow, so they really need to take care out of this situation on the field. But I also have iteration plus another Bowmasters in my hand, which is just very hard for them to deal with. I play another iteration, find the Arcanist. This is also another threat they have to immediately get rid of. And they play the Murktide Regent. Unfortunately, this was basically the only play that they could have, which puts me in a difficult situation like this one. So I had the Arcanist, and Arcanist was useful. I went for the attacks with the Arcanist, and I bolted one of the Murktides, and I was hoping them to block my Arcanist with that same Murktide. So I was able to give another damage to the Murktide and then finish that Murktide with a double Bowmaster, which was pretty cool. So this gave me another turn to try to find a solution for the Murktide, but unfortunately didn't draw anything I need, so that was the game. Okay, sorry, this was... Okay, so double Totsu's hand with the bold counterspell. Death Shadow, this is pretty good. So I start off with the Totsu's. Double Totsu's means I can go for a turn 2 Shadow, but I really wanted to find a Steam Vents here as I wanted to have a red source. And I don't have a Blood Crypt in this version, so I decided against playing Shadow here. I was just okay with holding the Bolt and playing Shadow a turn later. I was hoping for a land here so I can play Death Shadow, hold the counterspell. That didn't happen, but I did draw the iteration, which was very good too. So I find the land. And I decided to again pass the turn. Didn't play my shadow. I wanted to be able to hold the counterspell when I play the shadow to protect myself against their removal or their counterspell. So that's why I waited another turn. I'm not in a hurry really in this matchup. I'm okay in playing the long game and fighting the One Ring with my Bowmasters and aggressive creatures like Shadow Murktide. Okay, so I draw the Stubborn Denial here. That is a pretty good draw. So I can just attack with my creature turn after turn, protect it in a different ways. So I counter the Fatal Push, I counter the Archmage Charm, and connect with 4 damage. And the opponent gets another charm and gets rid of my shadow, but I had the bolt to kill my shadow, and I find the Arcanist. I untap, terminate the Murktide, and then I start doing the Arcanisting. I bolted them face, putting them on 6 life, and this means I have lethal next turn. When I untap, I do the 3 damage immediately, and this means when I tap, I have I can replay the bolt from my graveyard with the Arcanist for a lethal with the counterspell backup, and that is it. That is the match against Dimir Control. And we can now watch the final match of the league against Respect the Cat playing their Jund Saga list. A pretty fun match when I had like extremely good hand. And I started off with the Preordain and put 2 cards on the bottom just to find another Preordain, which was fine in a situation like this. Opponent discards the counter spell, but yeah, kind of a Totsis bug there. I find another counter spell from the top, which helped me to get rid of this Tarmogoyf, which was really important for this match. And now I was able to go for the Preordain and cast a 7/7 Murktide on a turn 3. You could already see in a lot of situations this exact same happening. Murktide on 3, which is like really powerful play. Opponent has the Saga, but I have a lot of good stuff here going on. 7/7 Murktide is it's a very good clock against them, very hard for them to deal with. So I was able to start attacking and then counter-ripping, trying to find more threats or more protection. So I had the drown and the counterspell. I was okay just attacking here, saving removal for their construct token and or just saving counterspell for their turn. I go attack for 7, put them on 11 life. Opponent, of course, goes for the construct here. Opponent went for the second construct, which was okay by me, and it seemed like they don't have a red mana at this point. I let them attack me for 3 so I can play my Shadow. They did Shock in the Blood Crypt, and they were on 9 life at this point, so this means like I'm really close to the kill. If I got the cantrip here, I would be able maybe to kill them immediately. But it didn't happen, but I was still in pretty good position here. I had attacks with Murktide, putting them on 2 life, playing Shadow as a blocker and holding the counterspell back up for their turn, which pretty much secured me the win here. And yeah, that was it. Okay, so opponent actually had the Terminate. They find the Terminate with the Mishra Research Desk. Luckily, I had my counterspell backup, and yeah, that was it. They had 6 cards in hand, but they weren't able to get rid of this Murktide, and that was the game. Let's check out game 2. Okay, I had to mulligan that one. Just my cards were all black, and I wasn't able to keep that Steam Vents. Opponent starts off with the Inquisition, gets rid of the Dress Down, which tells me they probably have Saga. Okay, yeah, there is the Saga. They go with the Mishra's Research Desk. I didn't have much here, but 2 very good cards, Expressive Iteration and Flame of Feiner, especially in situations like this. They're very useful. A Fatal Push from the top is also pretty good. Also, if you have Arcanist on the field, Arcanist is a wizard, so Flame of Feiner from the sideboard can do 2 modes. Okay, so my turn 3, I had multiple options here, but I decided to go for the iteration. I had land in hand, so I just exiled the bolt. Bolt in exile means if they make a construct, I kill it, and that's really what I wanted to do here. So what I wanted to do here is just shop myself and play this bolt. That was my plan. Kill their construct so they can't attack me with Shadow Spear or something. Yeah. Okay, they make another construct, find the Soul Guide Lantern. This was all fine by me. They played the Pride Spellbomb, making their construct even bigger. I find Bowmasters here. Get rid of their construct token, and again I didn't want to play a 1-1 Shadow. It just doesn't make any sense to play Shadow as a 1-1 there. So I just fetched, holding my Bowmasters. I was planning to cast that anyway. I go on 12 here, hoping for another fetch to play both of my shadows. I start off with the Bowmasters, end of their turn, also hoping for the Arcanist so I can play the Flame with the two modes. Flame of Fener is always good again in this matchup. It often kills you the Goyf when other cards can't do that. And it can be like really important. It also it's good against all of these Saga decks. And here it is. So I did find the Arcanist. This was the card I was looking for. And now I was pretty happy about my situation. I had the opportunity to play double Shadow and the Arcanist and have Flame of Fener for the next turn to kill both of their constructs if needed or something like that. So I just did this, played Shadows, played the Arcanist, and just passed the turn. It was a pretty even game. Opponent goes for double construct. They are 7-7 now, so pretty big. Okay, they didn't have a land, I think. Yeah, they didn't have it. So this means I untap. My opponent is completely tapped out. They don't have any interaction. So I have my Flame of Fener. I have the Arcanist trigger. They have a lot of these artifacts on the field. I get the fetch, so I can use this to grow my shadows. So I use the double mode with the Flame of Fener. I kill the construct, draw 2 cards, get the second Arcanist and the Hearse. Then I go very aggressively here, attack with everything. Try to finish off my opponent in one turn. And yeah, put them in 2 turns. I put them on 8 life. I play my Arcanist, so in case they decide to go for the Shadow Spear equip, I can and play a bunch of artifacts or whatever, which is not really possible in their situation at the moment. But yeah, okay, so they had the Goyf and played the Nihil Spellbomb to grow their construct even more. But I got I had a lot of good top decks here. I already had the Hearse in hand to make their Goyf smaller, but Dress Down was kind of perfect. And yeah, so I wanted to use this before the block phase, so they can block with the construct and force them to block with the shadow. My to block with Goyf, my biggest creature, 13/13 shadow. And I get through for 4 damage here, putting my opponent on 2 life and just casting this unlicensed Hearse as a hate for their I already showed you into the Gent saga my sideboard plan. We can watch this once again. So 2 considers out, counterspell is, and the starboard denials are not good. So I only left 2 counterspells in and 2 drowning locks, which can still be useful, but it is not just great when you play when you have a counterspell in hand and they have Saga on the field. Okay, but that's it. So that is the entire league. I had the kill there, and yeah, so a pretty fun deck to play. It is you really have to play everything very tightly, and you can't let yourself do any mistakes. Mistakes with this deck are very costly. Even slight ones just can completely ruin whole match for you. And yeah, so this is my tweaked list at the moment. Inclusion of counterspells, which is something I've really liked in this league, but also in other leagues I played. Counterspell proved to be very useful, especially in this league gameplay. Maybe depending on what you expect in the challenge or in some bigger tournament, you could if a counterspell is not that much needed, you could go with my previous version, the version from my channel, yeah, which got a lot of attraction and yeah, was really met uh, well, and it became pretty popular. And this is my tweaked version with the subtleties, in addition of subtleties to the sideboard, addition of counterspells and different mana base to support these counterspells and the cantrips and the Murktide bit better. And that is it. So I hope you liked these changes. Hope you liked the league, the gameplay, and that's it for today. A friendly reminder to click like, click subscribe, comment in the video, comment your choices for this, let's say, flex slots, comment on your experiences with this deck. I hear a lot of people struggling with this deck, but mostly due to not being experienced with this deck, and it is extremely hard deck to play. In my opinion, this is among top 3 hardest decks to play in the whole modern. So when you have this combination of cantrips, 8 cantrips in the deck, cheap counter spells, drown in the locks, discards, plus these kind of creatures like Arcanist, Murktide, Shadow, which sometimes you can play this brainless and just win with a large Murktide. But expressive, choosing when to cast expressive iteration, when not to cast it, when to hold interaction, when to hold the counter spell is just so crucial. Crucial. All of these small decisions affect the game greatly. Yeah, and that's it. Okay, so um, you really have to take this deck and start playing it if you want to get better with it, and if you want to start winning, you just can't take this deck and expect to immediately win the games. Of course, that can happen, but it is not easy, and you need some definite game experience with this deck to be able to finish the league with success. Okay, so but it is really fun and it is good and it is worth it, I think. And yeah, that's it from me for today. And again, thank you for watching. Goodbye.